Hey guys, and a very warm welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we are going to begin from today a complete whole new topic. We have already covered bilateral relations. If you haven't watched that yet, just go and check out our video on that. We have a comprehensively deep discussion which is related to UPSC on various bilateral issues of India, and from this we will be starting up with the new topic of internal security. Okay, so we will be beginning with the just a minute we'll be beginning with the internal security from today onwards, and we'll be covering all the topics of internal security relating to India, and what are the various internal security issues, and what would be the possible solutions to that. Everything, all of the discussions on various issues we'll be having. And before beginning with the discussion, I would like to tell you all, if you are new to this channel, so this is Awan Onjo this side, and I have started this free UPSC preparation for you guys. For all the people out there who cannot afford coaching, we'll be having free UPSC topics. We'll be covering all the syllabus. Our target is 1 year. In 1 year, we'll be covering all the syllabus. Okay. Some side tips and tricks also we'll be discussing, which is related, which is very important for you if you will be going for the exam. From that point of view also we are going to discuss. And before starting up with this, I would like you all to just subscribe, like and share. This is the only thing I want. You don't, this is completely free for you guys. Okay, just only thing I want from you is to spare a minute and just subscribe, like and share with the friends who also need it. So with this, let us begin. So we'll be starting up with the internal security, and we'll be going deep into various internal security issues in India, and we'll be looking at all the possible from the syllabus. If you will be tallying, so you would see all the different topics related to internal security, and we'll be covering all of them. Okay, so now let's begin. So first of all, I would like to begin with what is internal security. Okay, so if we want to know that what is actually internal security, that is our main issue. Okay, what it is, okay, and how it is maintained. This is the first topic we'll be discussing. We'll be having some basics right now. Okay, then we'll be moving deep into the other issues, which is related to many issues related to northeast insurgencies are there. Okay, and there are Naxalism and all. You all have heard it also about Naxal attacks and all that happens. We'll be discussing about all of it, but right now let's discuss how it's maintained by union. How it's maintained. Two of the two of the we have a federal party. Okay, so I'll be discussing this right now. Okay, so we have a federal system. Okay, whenever we have a government, we have a federal form of federal system in our India. We are a democratic country and we follow federal system. Okay, so in the federal system, what does federal system mean? It means that we have a two-tier government system. Okay, one is the union government, another is the state government, and we also have a third tier, that is known as on the local government, that is panchayats and all. But that is right now not uh, under the ambit of what we need to study. We'll be looking at because when we talk about the internal security, so the two major players in maintenance of internal security is the union and the state, so we'll be focusing on them only. Right now the role of local is not to be studied. We'll be studying the role of panchayats and all in the polity. When we'll start with the constitution and polity, we'll talk at that point of time. Currently we are just we are just concerned about union as well as state. Okay, so we have two subjects that are very important. Okay, two subjects that are very important under the ambit of internal security. Okay, first is maintenance of law and order. Okay, maintenance of Maintenance of law and order. Please don't mind my writing. I'm just writing with a mouse. I'm going to write the major points here. Mostly it is going to be the vocal discussion. Okay. So maintenance of law and order. And the second subject that is very important when we study the internal security is national security. Okay. National security. Okay, security of India. Now, how is the security maintained? I already talked to you about two forms of government, union and state, but there are two different kinds of national security which we are concerned about. Okay, one is the external security which we are concerned about, and the other one is the internal security which we are concerned in India. Okay, internal security. Okay, but in this we'll be talking about internal security. External issues we have done already. Okay, in the bilateral, so we have more or less covered everything related to security, but there are the security forces also which we'll be covering. But currently, under the major topic of internal security, we'll be studying only the issues and the how it is maintained, how the law and order is maintained, different kinds of forces in play. We are going to discuss about them only. Okay, so before starting, I want to tell you about the contribution of Kautilya. Have you heard this word Kautilya? Okay, Kautilya is also known as Chanakya. Chanakya Niti, if you would have heard. So Chanakya. Okay, so he was also known as Vishnu Gupta, and he authored a book. Okay, he authored a book known as Arthashastra. Arthashastra. Just a minute. So he has written a book named Arthashastra. Artha means meaning. Okay, Shastra, you all know. Shastra. Okay, Arthashastra. So it is the name of the book which is written by Chanakya. Okay, and this book talks all about four different areas. That is, first of all, it is a it talks about the statecraft. Okay, this is you can mention this while writing your answers. It is going to make it look good. Okay, it also talks about economics, various economic factors. It talks about polity, and it also talks about military strategy. So these were the major areas on which Arthashastra talks about. Okay, and according to this book, if we connect it to the security issues, so according to this book, we have four different kinds of threats. Okay, we have four different kinds of national security threats. First one being the external threat. Okay, which is the threat from another country. External threat. Secondly, we have external aided, just listen carefully, external aided internal threat. External aided internal threat. Third one is the internal aided, let's write internal threat. Okay, third is the internal threat, and the fourth one is the internal aided external threat. Just see the difference between the second and fourth point. Okay, so these are the basic different kinds of threats. First of all, external threat, which is the threat from any other country. Okay, threat from any other country, external threat. Then we have external aided internal threat. Means if somebody from outside of the country is aiding the internal threats of a particular country, okay, like you can say in the form of fundings, okay, if they are doing fundings, if they are supporting them in other manners, so that's external aided internal threat. Then we have the third one, that is internal threat. Okay, what is internal threat? We all know internal threats, which is the threats which are inside a country. And the fourth one is the internal aided external threat. That means any internal rebels or any other community supporting the external threats which are happening from the other country towards India. In this situation, let's consider India. Okay, if any other country is being supported by certain internal rebels for attacking our own country, then it is known as internal aided external threat. Okay, the internal aid is being provided to the external threats. I hope all of these points would be clear to you. If it is, let's move forward now. Okay, so if I talk about the internal security issues, now let's focus on that. Okay, so in order to maintain, I've written to you, I've already told you two different subjects, okay, which I mentioned, which is first one is the maintenance of law and order, and second is the internal security. Now if we talk about the maintenance of law and order, if I talk about that, sorry, law and order, if I talk about that, so the maintenance of internal law and order, okay, and for doing that, state here has established a, okay, I would like to clarify one thing. Whenever I write state, it doesn't mean that the the state which is there in India, we necessarily not talking about all those states. Okay, in India, in India we have the India as a country, and it is divided into various states. We are not talking about that. Okay, we are talking about the state here means country as a whole. Okay, so there are many of the times I'm going to use the term state, and it is not just me, it is how it is. Okay, everyone uses it, so don't get confused if I write the state. So state here has introduced, in order to maintain the internal security, state has introduced or established state police. Okay, state police has been established. Okay, now the internal security falls under the ambit of Ministry of Home Affairs. Okay, under the Ministry of Home Affairs, internal security issues falls under their ambit. And also Ministry of Defense. Okay, D. Ministry of Defense is another ministry under the ambit of which the internal security falls. Okay, I hope it is clear. So Ministry of Home Affairs usually manages the internal security issues, and the Ministry of Defense usually manage the external security issues. Okay, army and all external issues. Okay, so now constitutionally I would like to explain you. In our constitution, in the seventh schedule in the schedule 7 of the Indian Constitution, it has been there has been two different kinds of list that has been talked about. Okay, not two, three. Okay, first one is the union list. Second is the state list. State here is the genuine states. Okay, like the various parts in which India is divided. Okay, state list. And the third one is the concurrent list. I hope you would be aware about this already. So the union list and the state list and the concurrent list. Okay, so on the union list, it union list falls under the ambit of union government, state list falls under the ambit of state government, and the concurrent list have the subjects which both union and state can legislate upon. But if there is a case of clash between the laws, okay, in the case of a clash, so in that, at that point, the unions, what would be the verdict of the union would override the verdict of state. Okay, we'll talk about that. Currently let's talk about union. Okay, so there here parliament can legislate. Here parliament can legislate. Legislate means make laws. Okay, here state can make laws. Okay, Parliament is not going to interfere in state, and state is not going to interfere in parliament. But there are certain exceptions, we'll talk about that. And in the concurrent list, both parliament and state can legislate, but the decision of parliament would override the decision of state in the case of a conflict. Okay, so the priority of the decision of the parliament would be given the priority, okay, as instead of the state. Okay, now there is a very important entry in the list 2 of our constitution. List 2, okay, entry 1, entry 1 and entry 2. Two entries, entry 1 and entry 2, are very important. Okay, they are very important. Let's see why they are very important. Entry 1 deals with public order. Okay, entry 2 talks about police. Okay, also article mama mere sorry so article 330, not 330, 355, article 355, in the article 355 it has been written that union has to protect every state against the external aggression plus internal disputes. Okay, external aggression, you have to just look at it carefully. External plus internal disputes. Okay, so union has to protect external as well as internal, but the first, okay, let me first complete this. Okay, union to protect every state against external aggression plus internal disputes, and union has to ensure that the government of every state is carried on in accordance with the provisions of the constitution. So this is what is written in article 355. So if you would look at it, if you would read it, so you will come across two terms, that is that external and internal both, okay, is to be supervised by union. Then what is the role of state here? Just there is the list that we talked about. Okay, state and concurrent, there are some areas where they overlap. Okay, areas like internal security. Okay, if the internal security goes out of the hands of the state, okay, if it is on a very high intensity, then in that case it is taken over by the union. Okay, in the case of an emergency kind of, not the real emergency I'm talking about, not the constitutional emergency, but if it is a high intensity state, at that point of time union has to take over the responsibility of maintenance of peace in the internal areas as well. Okay, like within a specific state, if that happens, okay, union is not going to say if it is a high intensity that it's not our job. They have this duty also. Okay, and here is where it overlaps, and union also have to ensure that every state is, you know it is carried on in accordance with the provisions of the constitution. So it is a supervisionary role also for union towards the states. Okay, so this is all about article 355. I hope it is clear to you. this was some introductory part, and now we'll be talking more about law and order, state. Okay, we'll be starting up with that now. So now let us talk about law and order. Law and order. Okay, so when we talk about law and order, so we have, okay, there are certain responsibilities of the state. Okay, the state that the state police basically should maintain the law and order. Okay, and they have to perform certain duties, like first one is the prevention of crime. Secondly, investigation of crime. Third, prosecution. We'll talk about all of these separately. Okay, fourth is maintenance of public order. Order. So now let us first of all talk about the prevention of crime. So when we talk about the prevention of crime, so here we have basically the state police. Police is a state subject, you all know it. Okay, so the state police have the authority or power against the crime, but there is an important thing that the force should be proportional to the need to crime. Okay, so this is one of the important criteria that needs to be followed, that force should be directly proportional to the need to prevent crime. Okay, so if it is not happening, so it is a subject to judicial scrutiny as well. Really very proportional. Okay, it needs to be proportional according to the need to prevent the crime. Okay, so whatever our perceptions, most of the people carry this perception that they can use force indiscriminately. Okay, there is no power control or anything, but it is not so in real life. They have to just follow this principle where the force needs to be directly proportional to the need for prevent the crime. Okay, and they could not exercise extra force. Okay, otherwise it could be a subject to judicial scrutiny. I think this point would be clear to you all. Now one more thing I would like to talk about is, the opinion of various social scientists, okay, who study these topics in depth. They are having this kind of firm opinion that the crime cannot be controlled alone with the policing system. Okay, to make the society fully free of any kind of crime, policing needs to be there. Of course it is very much needed, but it is not enough. Along with the policing, we also need to have certain affirmative steps affirmative steps, okay, and the positive actions to bring an end to the social discrimination. Because the society as a whole should also, take up the affirmative steps along with the policing is the state subject, but this thing is in hands of society as a whole, and we should all together take these steps in order to, just bring an end to the things like social discrimination and bridge the gaps, okay, with different kinds of inequalities needs to be bridged upon, so that the crime does not happen. Because most of the crime they take place because of the indifferences amongst the society, okay. If there is a distribution of uneven distribution of wealth, okay, rich are getting richer, poor are getting poorer, so it creates a kind of, a deep kind of emotionally it is not good for them, and they end up going into crime. Not all of them, of course, but a major chunk, okay. So society should actually work to have towards the affirmative steps to prevent any of these things from happening, okay. I hope all of these points were very clear to you all. Now let us move towards the second point, okay. The second point was investigation of crimes. Investigation of crime, okay. So in order to find out who committed the crime is actually what is known as investigation of crime, which we all know, okay. But the bigger question is how we can investigate the crime. Not we, but the police, okay. How police would investigate the crime? So first of all, the police would practice things like authority, okay, technology, and skills in order to track down the person who committed the crime. Also the investigation that happens, okay, there is another very very important term which is highly misunderstood, which I'm going to clear in today's lecture. When we talk about the investigation, so I think you would have all heard about third degree third degree. Usually it is compared to third degree as a torture phenomena, but it is highly misunderstood. What is the real meaning of third degree is that there are three degrees of step. First degree is questioning. These are the steps to proceed basically during an investigation, okay. And first degree is the questioning, okay. First of all, and a person is subject to questioning, okay. Second is taking the custody of the suspect, okay. So suspect custody. And third degree is not torture, it is use of force, but not to an extent of torture. Use of force directly proportional to the need, and as you know that the subject custody is there, so questioning is going on, so a bit of force in order to, which could help, you know which would, help in order to improve the results of questioning. Only that much amount of force can be used, it is not any kind of torture or something, okay. So we need to look at these things because these things are literally highly misunderstood. We ourselves believed in that, but you need to grow and you need to just actually look at the real meanings of the thing, okay, instead of just believing anything. So this is the idea from Bollywood movies that we carry, that the police people can use any kind of force on anyone, which is not at all true, okay. Many of the there are many of the checks and balances there. And if anybody practices, although in real life it is not followed, okay, this torture and all, it is need to be directly proportional to the need to prevent the crime. Only that much force can be used. And secondly, if by some chance, if some police personnel uses the force, which is not proportional but of high intensity, which was not needed at that time, then of course that is a subject to scrutiny. Okay, so you need to know these things very well. Now let us move forward. Of course, I would like to change my ink color to a brighter one. Great. Now let us talk something about the third point which I mentioned, that was prosecution. And I know that today there is high disturbances in my surroundings, but you need to avoid it. This is currently unavoidable. Sorry, I just cannot change the place right now, but I hope you guys, my voice is clear enough. You have to focus on my voice, okay? So now let us talk about the third point, that is prosecution. Okay, so here what would happen is that the police, on the basis of the investigation of 3-degree method, okay, will prepare a charge sheet, charges against the criminal, charge sheet. Okay, and the filling of the charge sheet in court of law would be done, and they have to provide the court the evidences needs to be provided to the court. Okay, which are now evidence, there is a basic criteria for consideration. Okay, they have a eligibility to be considered as evidence. They should be sufficiently conclusive. Sufficiently conclusive means that they should provide the like conclusion in a sufficient manner. Okay, it need not be less than what is uh, like according to the need of the crime. The evidence should be strong enough to prove that crime. Okay, they should be sufficient and enough. Okay, so that the court could finally declare the suspect the convict, and thereafter accordingly the punishment to the convict would be given according to the provisions of the law. Okay, so this is all what is known as prosecution. But in this I would also like to talk to you guys about a very very important thing, that is cardinal principle. Cardinal principle of Indian criminal justice system. So there is a cardinal principle on which the justice system of India works. Okay, I think you would have heard it before also. So in the layman terms, it is innocent until proven guilty. Okay, innocent until proven guilty. Okay, so unless and until a person is proven guilty, he or she is innocent. Okay, so this is one of the cardinal principle. To be more precise, cardinal principle means that the trial in the court would start with the innocent until guilty provision. Okay, that means unless proven otherwise, on the basis of the adequate and the conclusive evidence through which the commission of the crime can get established beyond reasonable doubt. Okay, if not, then the accused will go unescorted. So this is what it is. What do we understand by cardinal principle? Innocent until proven guilty. Okay, so another thing that I would like to discuss to you guys under this prosecution topic is that I want to discuss to you about evidences, something about evidences. What kind of evidences are there? Okay, so there are three different kinds of evidences that are usually there. First one is known as oral evidence. Oral evidence. Okay. Second one is the documentary documentary evidence, and the third one is the circumstantial evidence. The words itself suggest the meaning. Oral evidence means the statement which is given by the witness orally. Documentary evidence means, of course, the involvement of the documents as evidence. Thirdly, circumstantial evidence is on the circumstances on the crime scene, what kind of evidences you could find, like a kind of a cell phone if it is there. Okay, like let us say as an example, a switched off cell phone is found circumstantially, which provides the evidence that yes, that particular the particular suspect was there. Okay, so things like that. On the crime scene, what kind of evidences we have got. So these are the three different kinds of evidences which are there. Okay, now let us just discuss the fourth point that was remaining. We have got 36 minutes. It's okay, we'll discuss more topics, we have a lot of time. So fourth one is the public order. Okay, public order. So when we talk about the public order, so public order is basically to ensure that all the activities in the public place are in a dignified manner. Okay, all the to ensure, this is the duty of the state police to ensure that every activity in the public place, we are talking about every activity in the public place is in a, these three terms are very important, disciplined, they are in a disciplined, organized, dignified, and orderly manner. So this is what is meant by maintenance of public order. Okay, so these were the 4 points that we discussed right now. Okay, under law and order we have completed this thing. Now I would like to touch upon the topics of national security in a much more detail. Okay, now let me talk about national security. Let me talk about this. Okay, oh sorry guys, sorry. Okay, national security. So when we talk about national security, so I already told to you that there are two different departments or ministries under which national security under their ambit it falls. First one was Ministry of Home Affairs, second one was Ministry of Defense. I talked to you, these are basically related to the internal affairs, these are basically related to the external affairs. Okay, so they talk about, first of all, the first point is they talk about the internal issues. They are there for the internal issue, for the internal security, and they are there for the external, MOD is there for the external security. So if you talk about MOHA, so within the territorial boundary, okay, they have the duty of maintaining peace, harmony and tranquility, whereas Minister of Department has the duty of maintaining sovereignty of the country as a whole. Okay, then MOHA should not allow any kind of separatist movements. Separatist movement should not be allowed. Okay, and the function of MOD is to neutralize the attacks from outside. Attacks from outside. outside means from other countries, okay, and in a promptly and an exemplary manner. MOHA, any kind of secessionist movement, okay, means politically separating, the movements which are demanding the political separation. Again, it comes under the ambit of separative broadly. So that needs to be controlled, okay. Any kind of underground activities within the Indian territory, and maintaining the unity and integrity of the country. These are the basic, you know kind of duties that needs to be performed and that are assigned to these ministries, okay. Okay, one more thing that I would like to add upon in this, like you can say, a kind of a analysis of what we have done, the analysis on the issue of national security. Like, we have talked about three things, okay. We have talked about law and order. We've talked about law and order, okay. We have talked about the internal security, and we have also talked about the external external security, okay. So if we talk about all of these things, so it is very difficult to distinguish between them in a firm manner, okay. And somewhere there is an overlapping between these three areas, okay. So, like, if I want to talk to you in the terms of a final conclusion to this thing, so it's very difficult to demarcate the three things through a linear boundary, okay. And there are overlapping between the three, therefore we need to create an environment or a atmosphere where peace and harmony in the country is maintained and every citizen of the country feels safe, secured and protected, and there should be a sense of brotherhood among all of the citizens, okay. And there should be coordination, cooperation and collaboration between the center and the state. As you can see that all of these issues are distributed between the state government and the central government, okay. So states and the central government should work in a cooperative manner, in a peaceful cooperative manner, because there is an overlapping, and if there is no peaceful coordination between any of them, then it would of course lead to many of the difficulties in maintaining what is expected from them, that is maintaining peace and tranquility within the country, okay. So there needs to be a peaceful cooperation, collaboration between them, okay. um, so this is what is a conclusive thing that needs to be kept in mind, and you can use this thing in your answer writing as well, because this is very important and needs a mention. But if you guys have heard that recently, also very recently, around March 2021, there has been a violent clash within the northeastern parts of Mizoram and Assam border, and we'll discuss about that in very detail also. But that issue, you can see that one of the uniformed personals of a state fighting with the other uniformed personnel of another state within the same country. So you can see the level of clashes and the level of disputes, especially in the northeastern parts. We'll talk about other Naxal affected areas. There are many states in India which are Naxal affected. We'll talk about that also. But these disputes, okay, they are needed to be managed maturely, okay. There is maturity required, because otherwise it is going to disturb the whole law and order situation in the country, which is not good, okay. Which is completely against what we are intending to do. We need to make our country feel safe. The people, the citizens living in the country should feel safe, and if these kinds of things are happening, so it is completely against what we are intended to do. So there needs to be a peaceful coordination, cooperation, okay, and a collaboration between all of the centers and the state governments in order to maintain and carry on a peaceful journey ahead. So this was all the basic kind of intro, and I'm going to stop this video here only because I thought that we'll do much more, but it's okay, we'll stop it here. Okay, and I will start another video with the other video would be about the internal security threats or challenges which are there before India, and we might also talk about Northeast if we would have time. uh, but this is it for this video, and I hope you liked and enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because that is what only I need from you guys. This is completely free for you guys. Okay, I'm also devoting time, you're also giving your time to watch this video, so just a small favor to just subscribe to this channel. It gives us motivation to create more videos for you guys, and it would help us keep going on forward. And I hope we'll be able to cover this whole chapter in a due time. Okay, so thank you so much guys, and have a very nice day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy. Bye.